Suit up, strap in, warm the tires, and leave on yellow. Time for the MitsuTimes podcast. Presented by MitsuTimes.org, the home of the fastest Mitsubishi cars. With your host, Josh.
Hey, what's going on, guys? It's Josh from MitsuTimes. Today, our guest is the one and only Mike Wohler with the Gastroker 2G. How you doing today, Mike?
Doing good, sir. How are you?
I'm great, man. Still running off that high from World Cup Finals, getting see all the guys out there.
Yeah, man, that was a good time for me. I've never made it that far before, so I'm definitely still riding the high myself.
Oh man, it was. I mean, that was it was my first time, so it was definitely a life-changing event there. See some really fast cars.
You're gonna be addicted now. I can never not go.
Yeah. So tell us about the Gastroker. What's the setup on it?
Gastroker. Let's see. She's a good old 6-bolt cast iron block still. So many people are like, "Are you on billet yet?" And I'm like, "Nope, still rocking that cast life." As you saw probably from some of the highlights from World Cup, I did have to change a block through the middle of there, right? So yeah, 6-bolt cast block. Obviously, a big, beautiful 84 millimeter force performance turbocharger sitting out front. Ton of Magnus goodies. Intake manifold, dry sump, TKs, billet knuckles, fuel rails, and other random stuff that I'm probably missing, but those are probably the big ones. All controlled in symphony with the Haltech Nexus R5 system. I just switched to that this year.
Nice.
Obviously I was on Elite since 2015. Shear fab. Tubular exhaust manifold, fuel cell. He also set up the additional injector, block that goes into the charge pipe.
Okay.
Yes, I run additional injectors without an intercooler because I run M1. I know a lot of guys run M5, but I really like the cooling properties of M1, and it's a little bit more forgiving than M5. What else? Oh, obviously, PPG dog box gear set in there. Those guys have been treating me well for many years. Quartermaster triple disc clutch, Mensker shocks. Jeez, what else going there? I guess one of the unique things about my car is it is a Ford 8.8 solid axle with a 4-link setup in the rear. I guess I'm kind of old school, and back in the day when Shepard was still running, it was like, oh man, he put a solid axle in his car, and I decided to do that, and it's really been a big pain in the ass for most of my car's life up until the last few years. We finally started getting that figured out, and the car really started to perform and lead well. One thing I'll say about it is it's definitely a bulletproof, unit for our cars. Like I can't kill that thing,
Yeah, that's one thing that won't break.
Carbonetics. Yep. Car's got, a plethora of the carbonetics parts from Sergio, hood, fenders, front bumper, roof, drag wing, side skirts, all the jazz. KDN performance, shifter. That thing has been a life changer. And fuel injector clinic, 2300 cc's, Siemens Deca injectors I get from them. I think that covers most everybody. I hope, I'm trying to do it all by memory, so.
So, Mike, what made you choose the 2G platform in the first place?
Man, I guess I was like 18 or 19 years old, and I was in like car clubs and stuff, and I just loved the look of that car. When I was a younger kid, even before I was like quite old enough to drive, I remember looking at him and just thinking, the bump on the hood, that was a really cool look. And then I guess it was one of the few cars at the time that was like within reach as far as affordability. That was turbo, it was all-wheel drive, and it had those black inner housing headlights, which was kind of a newer thing at that time. It had that opening in the front that just screamed, insert front mount here. I just loved the look of the car, and the car I had before, it was the first turbo car I ever had, so I was like fascinated by turbo. So I bought it in '99. and I still own it today. I paid 5 years, car notes on it. It was running 9s, and I think I had just paid it off.
Wow. So what was the car? When you bought the car, was it just completely stock?
Oh yeah, I bought it at a dealership.
Oh, nice.
20,000 miles. Yeah, I wasn't the first owner. I was second owner. It had like 20,000 miles on it, still under warranty.
That's awesome. Were there any when you first bought it? Were there any original goals?
Oh yeah, I just wanted 400 horsepower. Right when I bought it, man. I had my old car was a freaking Saturn, but I had nitrous and all kinds of shit on the Saturn, extrude intake manifold, hot shot header, like a bunch of bolt-on shit.
Right.
I sold some of the stuff off of it before I traded it in. So as soon as I got a whopping $1,500 for that Saturn when I traded it in.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I mean it was a piece of shit. But I took the money of everything that I sold that I took off. So like the first day or two after getting the Eclipse, I went and got exhaust, a boost controller, and coilovers. Like I remember I bought Skunk Racing, and it wasn't Skunk 2s Skunk Works.
Right.
The original, Skunk Work coilovers, an HKS hyper exhaust, and like a little Turbodynamics manual boost controller.
Heck yeah.
Like straight up to the Nopi store, because I lived in Georgia, and that's where Nopi was originated.
Oh, yeah.
I went straight to Nopi and bought all that shit.
Man, that's awesome. So so many years of that you've had the car, you've had God knows how many different setups on it. I just wanted to kind of talk about the setups that you've had that have been big milestones, because I know there's people out there with the 2G who want to break into the 8s or break into the 7s. You want to talk about the setup that broke you into the 8s?
Setup that broke me into the 8s. Yeah, it was still obviously it was still 6-bolt block, cast iron. I think I was already filling them at that time. I was still running a stock 2G rear diff. I actually had the Magnus tubular subframe on it with just a brace along the bottom. Those rear ends, the diff covers like to break, so you had to add a brace to the bottom of the diff cover. I was running AEM V1.
Wow.
I was in really good with Doug when Doug was still owned Top Speed Motorsports there in Georgia, so he was doing the tuning on it. I could never really get the hang of AEM. It was just so weird. I could do some basic stuff in there, but I couldn't tune the whole car like I can with Haltech. I can do whatever I need to in Haltech. But I was running on VP Import, which I can't even imagine what that stuff costs now. Back then, it was between 120 and 145 bucks for 5 gallons.
Jeez.
I can't imagine what that shit costs now. I was still on an FP turbo. If I'm not mistaken, I was on a 76 mil. I can't remember. I think I was on a dry sump then. I may have still been just on a stock oil pump at that point, but I know. Yeah. I was still on a regular oil pump. I didn't go to the dry sump until I think 2011 or 12.
Okay.
And I ran my first 8 in, I believe it was 09. Still pretty much it wasn't all tubed out in the front.
Right.
It was still a full unibody car.
That's awesome.
Still running PPG transmissions.
And once you broke into the 8s, was
the most I remember.
Once you broke into the 8s, was you immediately all right, now I got to get into the 7s? Because I know at that time it was pretty much unheard of.
Yeah, no, I mean, I definitely, of course, always had in the back of my head that I wanted to run 7s, but I wasn't okay, there's an 8, now I'm going to run a 7. It was just I was there's still so much more potential to this car. Even though it was an 8, I'm man, the 60-foot sucked. I was still running 1.5 60-foots and easing it out of the hole and, just trying to make the car better. I never had a number in mind. I've never had a number in mind, really. It's always just been incremental improvements. I just want to do better than I did before.
Right, go faster than last time.
Yes, sir.
So what was the setup on the car when it broke into the 7s?
Broke into the 7s, it's pretty similar to the setup where I'm at now, right? Just a few things moved around. I was on Haltech Elite at that point. I was running an FP 80 mil, and it was the Elite 2500. But everything else was still the same. Dry sump, the Magnus dry sump. I think I was running a different clutch probably then when I was running I was either still running the twin disc from Quartermaster, or I might have still been running a Tilton. I still have a Tilton carbon clutch. The reason I actually pulled it out was because I don't have a flywheel for it.
Oh,
Flywheel got banged up. Some of the bolts came loose. The flywheel got banged up. So, I still have it. It's a really nice unit. But I was still on methanol at that. I had switched to methanol at that point, which was when I switched to Haltech, which was in 2015. I also switched to M1 methanol.
Okay.
That's just when I had the header kind of swooping around and the turbo was kind of placed a little offset towards the passenger side, and it was a slightly smaller turbo, but for the most part it was the same setup.
Okay. So there you go. If you if your goals are run sevens, there's a pretty good outline of what you need to do.
I mean, I think the key is a lot of people, they want to buy cheaper parts because they think, I can get the car for cheap, the motors are cheap, but you still they're old cars. There's a lot, you gotta keep up with them, right? Like, you gotta do the right stuff first. Don't try to cheap out and skimp on changing a seal or,
right,
changing a freaking set of studs or whatever. Like, put fresh stuff in there. They're old cars. You're gonna beat the crap out of them and put, 4 or 5 times the amount of power that originally came with. They can be, air quotes, somewhat reliable, but you gotta do the right stuff.
Right.
Just because you get this car for $5,000 don't mean you gotta treat it like that.
You gotta do it right the first time.
Sense. Yeah.
So, Mike, you think after all these kind of calamities that you've had at the shootout and at the World Cup finals, that if you could start all over, you would still build this car the same way it is now?
That's a tough question. Yes, I would still build the car. There's a couple of things that I have done wrong that I was really stubborn about that really held me back for several years. The solid axle, it's working amazing now, but I went through a decade of trying to get this thing ironed out because everybody that's in the rear-wheel drive world has a recipe on how to make these things work, but nobody in the all-wheel drive world knows that recipe.
Right.
And when you try to get it from rear-wheel drive people, they really only know what to tell you how it works for them. So I've fought with that for years, and while it's working great now, probably going back, it would have been easier to just do like an 8.8 IRS. And the other thing was, I tried for several years to make that IKEA shifter work because I thought it was just the coolest thing in the world to be able to air shift and have it like a ratchet shifter. It worked great when it worked. It was amazing, but it was never reliable, right? And I think part of that is because that unit was never made for an Evo 3 or a DSM. It was made for an Evo 8. So the mechanics and the throw distances and everything were just a little off. And I kept always trying to modify my rails, modify the shift linkage and everything to make it work. And it would work when the car was calm, but as soon as it got rowdy, spun a little bit, it would miss a gear and beat up one of the dogs. So I really regret trying to keep that thing going as long as I did. Makes
sense. You hate when stuff like that just doesn't work out.
Yeah, I mean, I put so much time and effort into it. It's like, drop it. As soon as I dropped it and started shifting again, the car just, okay, I'm gonna go fast now. I just got, it took me a little while to get used to shifting again. Dude, I couldn't tell you how many times I'd let go of the staging brake and just put my right hand on the steering wheel like I'm just gonna drive and go bang off the rev limiter in first gear. Just I gotta shift the car now.
Yeah. So, Mike, you put in a lot of long nights this year, and I'm sure many years previously, getting the car back together. What motivates you to keep going with this car?
I guess it's just what I know, and it's the community that we have. Like, I've earned so many friends across the country in this platform. Like, I wouldn't know what to do without it. You know what I mean? Like, most of my friends are now, we're talking, 10, 15 years, and I've met them because of racing these cars. So
right.
They're a headache. We know they're not, the best platform for racing. If you want to be the top of the world type thing, obviously you just need to go get a rear-wheel drive car. But the community that we have and the challenges that we all face, and like being that kind of underdog, going out with an all-wheel drive platform and trying to push it to new limits is rewarding, and it's just what I love to do.
Definitely, I agree with that. It's definitely rewarding, especially seeing everybody at World Cup Finals, like see those yours and Devin's car out there. Like, oh man, these cars are still out here doing it.
Oh man, I hated that we had to race each other in the first freaking round.
I know.
That really sucked, but it was. This is the furthest I ever made it. Making it to the semifinals. It was kind of like we're out there at night and we're racing. We're like, really, we're still in this? I'm like, Jesus, I need to drink. Come on.
The crowd certainly loved it, though. I know everybody
was. This wrapped up.
As soon as they seen you and Devin pulling up to the line, everybody was ready to watch.
Yeah, for sure. All you had to do was bet on red, right?
Right. You knew a red 2G was going to win.
Yep.
So, Mike, do you have any goals for 2023 with this car? You just want to go faster than you did 2022?
That's usually what my answer is, but I want to be able to at least I want to break 720s.
Okay.
Usually I just say, I just want to be faster, but I definitely think the car's got a 720 in it. Been talking with Robert at FP, and we got some ideas going to, put a little more jam to it. And Marco's also working on some stuff for me where I can think we can make the car a little bit, put some more power to it this year. I think it's definitely got a 720 in it. And I just want to be able to literally, like, Ohio and here at a World Cup, I want to do more racing instead of number chasing.
Yeah.
Of course, I love to chase the numbers, right? That's what I usually do. But I really enjoyed getting out there and like, okay, let's have a strategy and not just swing at the fences for every round. You saw, if you noticed at World Cup, like every pass, the car progressively got a little bit faster because we kept just doing small minor changes, and then I would work on the, I've been working on actually focusing on the light. That last round, a lot of people don't know, but my clutch was starting to mess up. Like the floater plates were warped, so the pedal was dragging, right? So I couldn't put the proper amount of preload in the clutch.
Oh.
So when I sidestepped the clutch, it didn't initially move. Like I couldn't put enough preload in it because it would bog the car down because the discs were warped. So long story short, when I stepped off the clutch, it sat there for a minute before the pedal traveled all the way up to where the pressure plate actually engaged. So that's why I got treed as bad as I did.
Well, that makes sense now.
Make an excuse about that. I have to make an excuse about that because I'm not normally that bad on a tree.
Yeah, that's why I thought it. Something had broke or maybe the two-step wasn't right.
No.
This episode of the MitsuTimes podcast is brought to you by Speed Farm Garage. With a focus on the 2006 to 2012 Mitsubishi Eclipse platform, you can find not just products for sale, but experience advice on your Eclipse needs. Initially focused on helping people with 4G69 turbo builds, Speed Farm Garage has grown to promote R&D of the Eclipse chassis as a whole, while offering sales to multiple platforms. Based in Ontario, Canada, they personally understand and have experienced the difficulty involved in finding local performance parts sales, and have taken a role in expanding availability. Check them out on Facebook at Speed Farm Garage for product availability, as well as updates on their own project car, such as the 4G MR2 mid-engine Eclipse. So, do you have any? I mean, it's probably um hard to ask since you've already made it so far. But are there any long-term quarter mile goals?
I mean, if you're asking me, do I want to run sixes? Yeah, of course I want to run a six.
There you go.
And I think it's capable.
Yeah, definitely.
I just, I don't think that'll happen this year. That's a lofty one. I can remember for years just thinking, man, if I can just run a 770, for Shep, like he was 10 years ahead of
Right.
us with what he was
That's
able
amazing.
to accomplish. So it was a huge milestone for me to beat that number, that 770. So, to try to think now about the idea of running a six is kind of like, holy cow. But I see it, I can envision it. Like I'm running down the track going 7.6 to 7.5s, and the car feels stable and controlled. I'm like,
Right.
man, am I really an addict where I just feel like this is okay now?
I mean, if you're not running out on the edge, then you still got more left in it.
Yeah, I'm sure everybody's seen playing up videos where my car is all over the place and I'm too stupid to lift.
I still remember. Was it the shootout where you lifted all 4 tires off the ground?
I know I've looked at the front end at the shootout. There was a video from a race back in Atlanta where I did bunny hop and lifted all 4 tires off the ground.
Maybe that was it.
Yeah.
So
Good
Mike,
times.
if somebody, we talked about it a little bit already about using the right parts, but if somebody out there they bought a 2G and they're looking to get a serious build started, what advice would you give them from all the experience you've gained over all these years?
Well, crap, I already answered that earlier. Buy the right parts. Do it right the first time.
Yeah.
Don't cheap out with trying to use old reused stock parts. Buy the good quality shit. Don't buy eBay China crap. That's and use a good tuning software. Alltech.
There you go. You heard it from the man himself. So, Mike, what events can we come out and see the Gastroker in action in 2023?
2023 is going to be a good year, sir. Last couple of years, I've kind of had to lay low a little bit. I had a lot going on. I changed jobs and I moved up to the Northeast, so it was like, a little bit quiet for me, just because I had to take care of all that. Right. 2023 is going to be a good one. The car's still running right now. Going to do some upgrades to the chassis, literally to make it hopefully maybe a little lighter, but mostly I want it to be easier to work on, like in the pits. But so definitely I'm going to be at a handful of IFOs, streetcar takeovers. Going to try to make it to Texas 2K this year. Of course the shootout, of course World Cup finals, any other like local races, or I shouldn't say not local, but I try to hit as many races as I can along the East Coast within reason. I don't mind traveling, so you're going to probably see me at least 8 to 10 events this year. I don't have them all out because a lot of people's schedules aren't out yet, but streetcar takeovers, IFOs, anything that Chris Miller puts on from Pure Clutch, and then also, of course, Jason and Chris Miller, from MIR, anything they got going on, because I'm only within 4 hours of there now. The IFOs and streetcar takeovers, I think I just repeated all that, but yeah.
You think you'll
Good
hit
number of events this year, man.
FL2K2?
It's a possibility.
I know it's close to the shootout again.
That's a long, yeah, it's a long ride. The thing about FL2K is it's always like right in between Ohio and World Cup, and it's still a DSM, so 3 big events in a row. Something's gonna break.
Right. It's definitely not easy.
But hopefully this year, I'm able to replenish some spares. Maybe there's a billet block in my future.
That's what I was going to ask, too, if we're going to see a billet block in the future.
I've been trying to hold out, not just for the cost purposes of it, but it's kind of like one of those things where it's like I'm trying to make a statement, too, thinking, just see how far I can go with a cast block. But at this point, I'm kind of breaking. They're typically wearing out and breaking once a year, so I might if not this year, if not 2023, then definitely 2024. I'll give in and go to the billet block.
Yeah, after you broke a block in half, I thought, well, this will probably be where he goes billet.
Yeah, the last 2 or 3 cast blocks, I've like cracked them in half one way or another.
So, Mike, finally, I always give people a chance to kind of give a shout out to anybody that they've, had help them get the car where it is now. Is there anybody that you want to give a shout out to?
For sure. I'd like to thank my man Matt Patterson for helping keep me calm in the pits.
Alex Pasadello has been a huge, friend of mine and helped me put a lot of things together. Jeff Mueller, he helps me out a lot as well. Jimmy, and I got a lot of, I guess you want to say partners that make things work for me. Robert at FB, Marco at Magnus, Ron at Shear Fab, Sergio at Carbonetics. See, and this is where you start trying to go, who is everybody? Kevin at Kigley Racing. He's been instrumental as well, man. He's a mad scientist, and he helps me with all the math. And Dave at KDN, man, Devin at Booston. He's been a good friend of mine and always helped me, and we, bounce ideas off each other. And he's a really smart guy too. Dave Gammon at PPG, been instrumental. Chris Klein at Chris Klein Race Cars down in North Carolina. He's helped me a good bit sorting this chassis out. Brennan Raffey he's the one who just recently really helped me get this rear end and the 4-link figured out. My wife Teresa, of course, she's been there through a lot of bullshit and gotten sick of the car and then likes the car and then got sick of the car and then likes the car. She likes it when it does well. She doesn't like it when all I do is go out and brake. So I think that's about everybody, man. I
don't think anybody likes that, Mike.
I know, but I'm still like the guy going, no, I can make it work, right? Frank at Drive Shaft Shop for sure. Josh and Rick at Haltech. Tim at TMZ Performance. Mike Reed at Weisco. And Curtis at Boosted Fab.
All right, Mike. Well, hey, I appreciate you taking the time to come on here and tell your story. I hope that we've hopefully motivated some more people to get out on the list or get out to the track. And hopefully we can see another update, another personal best, even after World Cup coming soon, and hopefully a 6.
Dude, thank you. And also, I want to thank all the people that put on the events, because without the tracks and without the event promoters, what would we do? Like the Jasons, Chris Miller, Cliff from IFO, Victor down in Bradenton. Without those guys, we wouldn't be able to do anything.
Definitely. Thank you from all of us. We've had some amazing events this year. They're only going to get bigger next year.
Yes, sir. Dave Busher. Come on, the shootout. We're coming up on 30 years now.
Right.
It's an amazing accomplishment in itself.
Definitely. Well, again, thanks, Mike. Hopefully we can hear another update from you real soon.
All right, man. Thank you, sir.
Absolutely. Have a good one.
You too. Take care.
Thank you for listening to the MitsuTimes podcast. Check out our Instagram and Facebook for daily updates. Get added to our list by going to MitsuTimes.org and clicking Submit a Slip. Thank you to all of our sponsors.